Okay, everybody, we have made it. There is one day left until Donkey Kong Bananza launches, which means we have one countdown video left. And today, that is going to be one last bingo card that I have with all of the predictions for the game. No, we are not covering any of the spoilers. All of this speculation is entirely based off of everything that we've seen publicly available. Even though there's just one day to go, we're not covering any spoilers on this channel. Instead, we are having fun speculating. Thanks for joining me for this countdown. It's been a blast. It was a real challenge to put together one video a day for 7 days, but it's something that I've really enjoyed and has really made me more excited for the game. Now that the game is finally launching, make sure to subscribe so we can move from speculation to analysis of the story, gameplay tips and tricks, and just enjoying this world that we get to explore together starting tomorrow. So we're going to go through this bingo card with my final predictions and speculations and come back after the game launches to see what we got right and if we scored a bingo. So the first prediction I've got here with the picture of On Guard is a swordfish or fish transformation generally. We are expecting to have additional transformations in the game, and I put this as the most likely additional transformation because it would allow us to do some of the underwater levels that are a tradition in the Donkey Kong games, and it would make for a perfect homage to some of the past games. Which brings us immediately to the second prediction in this row, which is underwater levels. We know that there are water levels and you can swim, but they show us mostly traversing the surface of the water. And I think it would be really great to see an underwater level featuring a fish transformation inspired by On Guard. The next prediction I've got is that we end up seeing Pauline growing up at the end of the game. I think there's a lot of good reason to believe that Pauline has been transformed in age somehow, and that this may be the same character as Mayor Pauline from New Donk City from Super Mario Odyssey. And if so, it might be that fulfilling her wish is to return to her normal self. I don't really know what that would mean for the post game because you would need to still have her available as a small child in order to ride along with you, but it's possible that that could be the canonized version of the story, is that Pauline grows up and returns to found New Donk City, perhaps with Donkey Kong. The next prediction is that we see additional mini games. So this is Beaver Bother from Donkey Kong 64, which I know isn't most people's favorites, but that is what really set the stage for having a ton of mini games in Donkey Kong games. We know that there's going to be some kind of racing mini game with Rambi and Diddy and Dixie, but I expect to see at least a few others, even if it's not Beaver Bother. All right, the next prediction, the final prediction on this row, which is really hurting my chances to score a bingo in the top row, is that this is actually Pauline deciding not to grow up. This is Pauline deciding to stay young with Donkey Kong even after she gets her wish and perhaps even realizes what has happened to her. This has a lot going for it gameplay wise because it would allow for a coherent post game that you would still have small Pauline to ride along with you. And it might be narratively satisfying as well. It's a pretty common trope too, that you have a character who believes that they wish to change their circumstances, but on the journey to make that wish come true, they realize that they are actually where they want to be. So it may be that that is Pauline's original wish, but through her journey with Donkey Kong, she realizes that she has been home all along, essentially. Because of the gameplay consistency, most of all, I think this is probably more likely than we see Pauline grow back up into the mayor of New Donk City. But one way or another, there are some timeline shenanigans that will have to be explained. Okay, moving on to the second row, we've got the possibility of visiting DK Island proper. We know that Ingot Isle is far off the shores of DK Island, but a lot like the postgame from Super Mario Odyssey, where you end up being able to return to the Mushroom Kingdom from Super Mario 64, it would make a lot of sense if the DK Island from Donkey Kong 64 serves as a post-game hub and fan service for everybody who wants to return to this really classic location. The next prediction on this row is that King K. Rool makes an appearance. There are a lot of great lore channels that I will link below that talk about all the reasons we would expect to see K. Rool appear in this game, and they've really convinced me of that. We have all these crocodile enemies, these Kremlin-style skeletons, and the suggestion that Void Kong is hiding something or is not the true end boss, but we'll just have to see. Okay, and the next prediction is that we have some kind of achievement system. We have footage of the game tracking a bunch of metrics like how much gold you've collected and how much terrain you've dug through, but for achievements I'm thinking pretty similar to the Super Mario Odyssey style, where you get additional collectibles for having completed some of these challenges. Given that this is produced by the Super Mario Odyssey team and there's so many parallels with the gameplay, I expect to have something like this. And the next one on this row is that there is something hidden about Void Kong, that he is not the true end boss, that he is deceiving us in some way. Maybe he will end up transforming into King K. Rool, or he is otherwise pretending to be something that he isn't. Again, a lot of this comes from the lore parallels with Journey to the West, which has really been fascinating for me to learn about. And it seems that Void Kong is representing this deceitful character from the literature references that this game seems to be drawing from. And the final prediction on this row is that we have some kind of frog transformation. Again, we're expecting additional transformations in this game, and as I speculated in a different video comparing the available transformations to the previous Animal Buddy system, I think a frog transformation would actually be a lot of fun, allowing you to jump really high or really far. I think there's better evidence for additional transformations that we're going to talk about in a second, but I actually think a frog would be a lot of fun. Moving on to the next row, Diddy Kong is here to represent the possibility of having playable Kong buddies. We know Diddy and Dixie are in the game. Right now they seem to be NPCs, but I'm wondering if in the post game there might be the option to swap out Pauline for Diddy or Dixie, even if it's just an aesthetic change and doesn't actually alter the gameplay. I think that that would make a lot of people really happy to get their Kong buddies back, and I personally would love to see it. Similarly, the next prediction is that Funky Kong makes an appearance in one way or another, as a shop owner or an NPC, or perhaps it wouldn't even be a full Funky Kong appearance, but would be the outfit for Donkey Kong to wear, since we know there are going to be outfits. And after the free space, the next prediction is that we will return to New Donk City, or perhaps it's that we're even building New Donk City, depending on where in the timeline we are. This again would probably be part of the post game, like visiting DK Island, and could be a version of the darker side of the moon from Super Mario Odyssey. In the opening sequence, there is a city being shown off in the background, and some people have speculated that this could be New Donk City. There are crates marked for NDC, so there seems to be an explicit connection between New Donk City and the world of Donkey Kong Bananza, but we don't know whether or not we'll be able to actually visit this place in the game. And finally, on this row is some kind of resurrection motif of all of these golden skeletons or fossilized enemies or friends from the previous games that we're seeing all over the place. It seems that there is some theme of the past games being buried and fossilized, but sort of coming back to life in new forms. And I'm curious if we're going to see characters like the Kremlings properly resurrected in a way beyond these golden skeletons. Which takes us then directly to the fourth row, which is that the Kremlings do make an appearance. This is separate from K. Rool, and it's separate from just seeing the golden skeletons. It would probably be tied to the resurrection motif, but could be in a different form. If we see proper Kremlings appear, I think everybody's going to be really happy about that. The next one is sort of a metal one, that we're going to see people level an entire layer or multiple layers within just a day or two on YouTube. Unlike Super Mario Odyssey, this game has a lot of sandbox elements. It has completely destructible terrain. I think it will take people a lot of time, but I fully expect to see folks completely demolishing entire layers just to prove that they can. And the next space shows Ellie the elephant to represent the idea of an elephant transformation. I think there's a lot of good evidence from the footage we've seen. There seems to be an elephant-based layer. I'm not sure what the powers would be because you might expect a hard charging terrain leveling kind of strength, but we already mostly have that with the Kong Bonanza. And so it's possible that it may be more about using the trunk with water or being able to walk across difficult surfaces, but we will see. And the next square featuring Squawks the Parrot is the prediction of a hint system. I think this is a pretty safe bet. In fact, even Super Mario Odyssey literally used a parrot as a hint system. So I hope it Squawks in particular, but I expect that there'll be some kind of hint system to help you find the remaining bananas, just like Super Mario Odyssey had. And the final prediction on this row shows a giraffe fractone, and that represents the idea of a giraffe transformation. Because we see some of these giraffe type characters, it seems reasonable that that might be one of the additional transformations. Although up until this point, I've actually scored this as less likely because I'm not sure what the gameplay role of the giraffe would be. I suppose it would make you taller, but I just don't really know what else would be fun about it. But I'm not as creative as the devs, so I'm sure we'll find something. And moving on to the final row, Balloon World Luigi is representing some kind of DLC. This is what we got with Super Mario Odyssey, the ability for players to hide balloons from other players online. I'm not sure that that would be exactly what would be represented with DLC for Donkey Kong Bananza, but Nintendo seems to be pouring a lot into this game. We expect that there will be a 3D Super Mario coming along maybe next year, but it's possible that they're going to really keep investing in this game for a little longer. Nintendo doesn't usually do a ton of DLC for these big games of theirs, but it's something that they seem to be exploring more of, and it would be great to see some additional mini games like this. Unfortunately, they really don't seem likely to add whole additional levels, as you would see in DLC from other kinds of publishers, but we can hope. The next prediction is representing some kind of timeline shenanigans. It seems that the devs are taking the story somewhat seriously, but that leaves a lot of strange open questions that seem to involve time travel or alternate timelines. We have this Pauline who seems like she must be related to Mayor Pauline from New Donk City, but doesn't seem to remember being that person. So is she going to grow up to be them? Was she sent back in time and lost her memories? But it's not just Pauline. Donkey Kong 2 seems to be operating in a strange timeline where a lot of the characters from his past games have been fossilized and buried underground, and it's not sure if we're in the same universe as those games either. So I'm expecting some sort of hand-wavy time shenanigans that try to make it make sense, but will ultimately be a little bit silly. And the Bowser capture from Super Mario Odyssey stands in for some kind of similar climax to this game. Perhaps the ability to transform into a Kremling or into K. Rool himself in order to perhaps defeat Void Kong, or maybe it's the other way around. You transform into one of the Void Kongs to defeat K. Rool. Something using the transformation mechanic in order to have a one-off battle for the end of the story. And the next square is some kind of upgrade for Pauline's powers. So I've speculated that the missing skill trees, while they probably represent additional transformations, could have some space for upgrading Pauline's powers. However, it's not necessarily just tied to the skill trees. We really have Pauline marveling about acquiring her own special power. To me, it really kind of feels like it's coming later in the game. And so it's possible that even if it's not something that you upgrade with the skill trees, that there is a new power that Pauline unlocks partway through the game. And if so, that would count for this square as well. And the final prediction is that some of the Void Kongs turn around and join our team. I've seen some snippets of dialogue of Grumpy or Poppy interacting with the player in a way that they seem sort of less mad at us than you might expect the main villains to be. And there's also a suggestion from their body language that they don't really like Void Kong, their purported leader, very much anyway. So I wonder if after defeating them, Grumpy and Poppy end up actually joining forces with us when they realize that Void Kong is not doing what he says he's going to do, or has in some other way alienated them. Well, those are my final spoiler-free predictions, one final bingo card before the game launches tomorrow. I'm really excited to join all of you in discovering this game together, so subscribe for more Bonanza goodness.